The San Diego is what happened when Wargaming slapped a shit ton of gimmicks to the Atlanta so they can sell it as a tier 8 premium and charge more money without having to make an entirely new ship. While it shares the same hull and armament as the Atlanta, these new gimmicks have turned the San Diego into a fundamentally different ship compared to what the Atlanta class were known for, which is its space program. To start, it no longer gets HE shells, replaced with SAP. But this is no ordinary shell swap. Usually, SAP shells have a much higher alpha compared to HE. This applies to all ships that has SAP. But the San Diego SAP damage is the same as normal 127mm HE shells, giving it the lowest SAP shell damage at 1800 damage per shell, and 594 damage on penetrating hits. So it has the worst SAP shell in the game. But at least it can now penetrate 36mm of armor. Then you realize that it has worse DPM compared to the Atlanta, being 15% worse. And just to remind you, the San Diego can no longer deal fire damage, and it will be facing pork knuckles. Not a great start for a famous historical ship with more battle stars than the average IQ of my teammates, but what it loses in DPM and potential damage is compensated by having superior shell ballistic, much better penetration, flight time, and flatter arc, to the dismay of absolutely no one. It even competes with 152mm shells, just barely edging out their flight time. This makes predicting and doing follow-up shots easier, as the shells no longer goes through airport security, but of course it doesn't beat the Austin and its adorable turrets. However, the San Diego gets access to AP, which is more useful for night fighting cruisers, something the Austin can only dream of, and once again it gets a much better penetration compared to the Atlanta. You use it against people who thought the San Diego is just another Atlanta class cruiser that doesn't know anything about island camping. Still, there are concerns that the absence of HE shells is a deal breaker. The better ballistic means less island it could camp on, and can no longer farm damage like most other super light cruiser, an important thing to have in high tier, where everything must counter everything, and boy it has a lot of counter. By being an Atlanta hull, there is absolutely no armor, and gets overmatched by everything. But if you know anything about overpenetration, you know where this is going. At tier 8, the San Diego has the narrowest hull, an underwater magazine citadel, and the smallest overall citadel volume, which means as long as it shows that flat broadside, any AP will come out the other side, just like your feedbacks to Wargaming. This is the San Diego party trick that you can pull off with even less risk compared to the Austin or even the Smolensk, and best of all, you can undo some of the damage using the repair party, which brings us nicely to our sponsor for this video, which is Box of Gimmicks. First up, hydroacoustic and offensive AA on separate slot, so it can tell birds and fishes to f off. Second is the aforementioned repair party, because that's how you spot a good tier 8 premium cruiser. And finally, airstrike depth charges on an Atlanta class ship, which is second only to the Colbert for 127mm equipped super light cruisers that gets their strike depth charges. Even the Austin doesn't get it. And as a bonus it gets reload booster because American bias. These gimmicks is what sets the San Diego apart from its contemporaries, and avoids the flaws associated with many super light cruisers. Let me explain. Most super light cruisers are made to be extremely good at HE spamming or torpedo spamming. Sometimes both, yet they are at the detriment of RNG, such as relying on fire chance because their small guns can't penetrate anything, or hoping the torpedoes will hit. You can't be certain with your effectiveness until that numbers on the top right corner of the screen goes beyond 6 digits, simply because you have the urge not to throw away those DPM potential by doing nothing. But the San Diego does not have to deal with such predicament, so it can focus more of its effort on increasing battle impact, and this is how you do it. You can be anywhere you want on the map, as long as the position you took patches up the gap left by your teammates that can otherwise be abused by potential flankers, which you almost likely cannot ignore. You become an early warning / response against potential threats like how America sees Eastern Europe. It can do this because it can play independently without support, and has the flexibility to deal with many things, particularly against air and underwater threats. The defensive AA is more than capable to tell carrier players that they are not skilled enough to play them, made possible by its special defensive AA, with higher DPS and faster reload, at the cost of lower action time, which makes it the most practical defensive AA in this game. The small size allows it to dodge more shells, and make it hilariously capable at avoiding most dangers, on top of being almost impossible to citadel when showing broadside, as long as you have enough HP to do it. But the most valuable tool it gets is the airstrike depth charges, combined with hydroacoustic surge, makes it one of the most capable super light cruiser at hunting submarines, as it allows the San Diego to immediately drop on that spotted submarine, without needing to chase and compromise its position. The ideal position for the San Diego is almost always a very dangerous spot. It might as well count as overextending, but as long as there is an island between your ship and the biggest gun on the enemy team, you will most likely be fine and will guarantee a tactical advantage one way or another. These positions can be found through practice and careful assessment of the game, and when you manage to find an opening, it's pretty much game over for the enemy, as they struggle to comprehend your unconventional position, probably short-circuited their brains so hard they become co-op bots, which gives you a free kill. If you were lucky, then the game would provide you with more of these people, those who can't read the mini-map and thought islands plays no part in historical naval battles. Give them a reminder that this game is just as fictional as their brain. At any given chance, you want to be the one that shoots first, take advantage of its best-in-class concealment and one of the fastest turret rotation in the game. Then once the enemy started angling, you hold fire or get behind cover, turn back, and shoot it again. Remember not to shoot at angle ships, unless you need to take their focus away from your teammates, but do it discreetly. It may be able to dodge many shells and eat over pens all day, but it is not a tank, and you don't want to take more than 3 guys at once. It is particularly weak against HE shells, so avoid them as much as possible by not prolonging the engagement, especially when you're playing with enemy battleship. They could learn about overpenetration at that very moment, and able to punish you harder with HE. Other occasional threat will be big American cruisers, equipped with AP shells that only points to the nearest citadel, just like how American finds oil. And finally, be always on the lookout for this specific carrier. With enough patience, you'll get that dream engagement where the enemy battleship is too focused on killing your teammates. This is where you can finally farm damage using the reload booster, a reward given when you're done killing all prior enemy ships. After enough games, you would notice the amount of freedom the San Diego provides to your average cruiser gameplay, thanks to all the gimmicks and the unintended usage of a tier 7 hull. But you would also notice that the San Diego is still very much a support ship, not a damage dealer. So in case your patience runs out, you can use the torpedoes to go nuclear at any big issue.
なんと86号車がブレーキングを遅らせてその感覚を一気に詰める曲がれるのか曲がってしまうのか
But seriously, doing damage to battleships should be your last priority. It's not worth the time and it's definitely not rewarding, even if you can shrug off their shots. But if you absolutely have to deal with them, you need to have either a teammates that can force them to turn, or you can use a massive island and hug it to death. Best used against pushing battleships, as it fools them into thinking they are getting an easy kill, which caused them to be cocky, and promptly wasted their shots into an innocent rock. Then you can kill it with torpedoes, or your guns, eventually. But this kind of encounter is some of the best fun you'll have on the ship. I cannot understate how important it is to abuse islands as much as possible, to a point where shooting from open water probably increases the chance of losing. Islands will always be tactically preferable. You can use it as cover, you can shoot over it, you can use it to play hide and seek with destroyers. Things will usually fall in place the closer you are to an island. At the end of the day it is still an Atlanta class cruiser, with added flexibility to be useful from open water when necessary, securing flanks from everywhere in between, and most importantly from carriers and submarines. Fortunately, you will always be in their way. This is how you play the number 1. You take last stand, focus fire training, superintendent, and concealment. Then take adrenaline rush, so people stopped bothering you. Survivability expert, top grade gunner, and finally consumable specialist. Another option is to change top grade gunner for AA defense and ASW expert, which will further improve its capabilities against the fun police. For the upgrades you take main armament mod 1. Engine room protection, aiming system, propulsion, and concealment. All you need to do to play the San Diego effectively is to leave HE spamming mentality behind and able to put up with dealing less than average damage, which goes against what most people believe to be the only way to play. If you're interested with this proposition, then you have ascended from insecurities. But if you still prefer brute forcing the enemy with DPM, you can get the Bayard. Once again the alternative is the French, yet it still cannot compete with the amount of quirks and features on the San Diego that will be much better utilized. It may start the game plugging up holes left by its teammates, but when it's left unchecked, will become very difficult to kill, and it is most efficient against 2 of the most hated class in the game. So if you need the perfect ship to counter those 2, and earning a shit ton of credits, say no more. With all that said, consider yourself a Unicum San Diego player, if you are able to accurately predict whether you will get deleted when showing broadside. So the next time you got killed when showing broadside, you can safely assume it's just the game telling you to stop being too good.